Welcome to another Backroads West adventure. This time, we'll take you on a virtual journey down nostalgic Route 66 through Arizona. This photo essay is part one of a two-part tour that goes from the New Mexico border to Flagstaff. Part two of the tour, coming soon, will continue down Route 66 from Williams and end at the California border on the Colorado River. Route 66 is probably the most well-known and popular road trip destination in the United States, if not the world. All across America, signs mention Route 66 and people wear Route 66 shirts and hats. Even when we travel around Europe, the Route 66 highway shield can be found in bars and hanging in places. This highway that traverses the country diagonally from Chicago to Los Angeles will forever be engraved into the culture and heritage of the United States. What you'll see along Route 66 is pure Americana. On this tour, we'll show you what there is to see along this historic road and where these places are. We'll also go to many of the towns that the modern highway, Interstate 40, passed by when it was built through Arizona in the 1960s and 70s. Keep in mind that although Route 66 was established in 1926, it utilized many existing roads that were established in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Much of what you'll see on this tour are the remains of where Route 66 once passed through between those years and into the 1970s. The modern push to preserve Route 66 didn't begin until the late 1980s. Before then, Route 66 was just another obsolete road that had been replaced by a freeway, which there were many of. If you're planning to travel Route 66, use our tour to help you decide what stops you want to make based on what interests you the most. For example, what will I find if I drive through Joseph City? Or should I spend extra time visiting Petrified Forest National Park? The reason we are traveling Route 66 from east to west is because that's the direction that so many people would have driven this highway in its heyday. Just like in the classic movie, The Grapes of Wrath, they traveled from the Dust Bowl of Oklahoma in the east to the land of hope and prosperity in the west, California. We'll also talk about the prolific artist Bob Waldmeyer. Before his passing in 2009, he created numerous informative drawings and paintings of places along Route 66, especially in Arizona. When we reach those places on our tour, you'll see examples of Bob's timeless work compared to the actual scene. You'll also see the detailed maps that he drew and wrote on in his meticulous writing font. And of course, we'll provide geographical information using both Google Earth and Gaia GPS. Google Earth is great for visualizing our route from an airplane's perspective. Our route will attempt to stay on the historic alignment of Route 66 as much as possible. In most places, the alignment is obvious and marked with signs indicating historic Route 66. But in other places, the original road isn't so obvious. On this part one of the tour, from New Mexico to Flagstaff, most of the alignment is either next to I-40, serves as the main street of the various towns along the tour, or I-40 was simply built on top of Old 66. In the upcoming Part 2, much of the alignment is far from I-40, and you'll be traveling on the road's original alignment most of the way. We'll be using a variety of maps to show where you can find these old alignments of Route 66, including some drawn by Bob Waldmeyer. His knowledge about the history of places along Route 66 is impeccable, and we'll highlight those places along the way. As mentioned, our journey begins on the New Mexico-Arizona state line in the town of Lupton. Here you'll see a number of classic Native American trading posts that existed before the 1940s. Lupton actually started life as a stagecoach stop before mechanized travel. As you can read from the signs, this is the Yellow Horse Trading Post. It's been family owned and operated for most of its existence. David Yellowhorse installed the animals you see on the ridge above the buildings. Later, as we head west on Route 66, you'll see that models of animals and various other creatures was a common theme during the old road's heyday. The animals you see here, erected by Mr. Yellowhorse, is a preview of what's to come. David Yellowhorse still lives on the premises, making knives in a nearby shop. His cousin operates the trading post. There are other trading posts next doors that have different themes and decorations than the ones at Yellowhorse, providing more examples of classic Indian trading posts. From Lupton, there's a short 1.5-mile segment of Old 66 on the southeast side of I-40. It gives you a good view of the railroad tracks and the nearby scenery. You'll need to get onto I-40 at the next intersection. Continuing west on I-40, our first stop is Fort Courage at exit 348. By the way, that mile marker means 348 miles from the California border. Fort Courage was primarily a children's attraction along Route 66. It was a mock-up of the fort used in the popular TV show F Troop that aired from 1965 until 1967. When we visited, all that remained were these ruins, and there were no signs of any business here being open. By the looks of the ruins, there were businesses open here up until the 2000s. Heading west from exit 348 on the same frontage road that Fort Courage is on, you can drive an old alignment of 66 that will take you over the rickety Cuerno Canyon Bridge. This bridge was built in 1930 and is 269 feet long. You'll need to get back onto I-40 at exit 341. The next point of interest on our tour is Petrified Forest National Park, which is accessed from exit 311. It's easy to spend a day or more here looking at all the unique scenery preserved by the park. On the north side of I-40 is the park's visitor center and gift store, plus several viewpoints of the Painted Desert. There's also the historic Painted Desert Inn, which is a historic hotel that used to operate here and is well worth a stop. A mile further down on the park's main road is an exhibit about historic Route 66. Most of the park is on the south side of I-40, where you'll find numerous deposits of colorful petrified wood left over from the geological Triassic period. If you're going to spend a day at the park, we recommend you drive it starting at the south entrance, which is called Rainbow Forest. Then drive north to this spot and return to I-40. The reason for doing this is so that the sun will be behind you the whole way, giving you the best lighting. If you didn't have time to see the national park and would like to see specimens of petrified wood, the next off-ramp west on I-40 is exit 303 or Adamana Road. There are several petrified wood stores and trading posts here. On the north side of I-40 is Stewart's Petrified Wood Shop. With his property butting up against the national park boundary, there is a significant amount of petrified wood on the owner's property that they simply dig up with a backhoe. You'll see those specimens in the front of this shop, along with some other interesting artifacts. On the south side of I-40 is the Painted Desert Indian Center. It too offers petrified wood as well as other Native American goods. Keeping with the petrified wood Triassic theme, you'll see more models of what animals may have looked like from that prehistoric era standing around. There's also plenty of models of Native American features to be seen here. Although we are near the Navajo Nation, what you'll see depicted along this part of the tour is mainly from the Hopi culture. These two Native American cultures are very different. Both of these stores existed back in the Route 66 heyday before I-40 was built, and both were certainly attractions for those travelers heading westbound like this tour who have never seen things like this before. Next to the Indian Center, you'll see this deteriorating bridge that once carried a countless number of Route 66 travelers before I-40 was built. I don't think I'd want to drive over it today. The city of Holbrook is reached on I-40 16.5 miles later. Take exit 286 to reach the downtown area. Follow the signs taking Highway 77 south. Holbrook was founded in 1882 by the Atlantic and Pacific Railroad, which later became the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad, and is now BNSF Railway. The city was named after Henry Randolph Holbrook, chief engineer of the Atlantic and Pacific. What you'll see by driving the Route 66 alignment through Holbrook are older businesses from the old road's heyday. Unlike the commercial success of Winslow, a town we'll be visiting soon, Holbrook has experienced a very slow rate of decay since I-40 was built and bypassed the businesses, a common theme all along historic Route 66, as you may recall from watching the Disney Pixar movie Cars. What Holbrook does offer are numerous old buildings sporting wonderful paintings. It's worthwhile either driving around the streets or getting out to walk around to admire the paintings like we did. Since Holbrook is the county seat here, there is a classic old courthouse situated just off Highway 77 and Route 66 that now serves as the Navajo County Historical Society Museum. According to their website, they are open 7 days a week. See their website for more details. 2 blocks south of the courthouse is a major intersection where Route 66 turns right or west, and Highway 77 continues straight. For now, continue straight to see Holbrook's historic railroad depot. Just after crossing the railroad tracks, turn left to see the finally restored depot. Its historical significance comes from when Geronimo, the famed Apache military leader, surrendered in 1886 and was taken to this depot to be sent to a prisoner of war camp in Florida. Continue south on Highway 77 across the Little Colorado River, then turn left onto Highway 180. Soon, on the right, you'll reach this big petrified wood store. If you'd like to see some great specimens of petrified wood, stop here to take a look around. There's a lot to look at, both big and small. From here, head back to the big intersection and turn left or west, which will put you back on Route 66. Along the next mile of road, you'll see more classic restaurants and hotels. This Mexican restaurant, Joe and Aggie's, was a well-known stop for recent Route 66 travelers. As of 2024, it isn't open. Across the street is another Mexican restaurant. Both places have fun paintings to take a closer look at. You'll see more classic old hotels, most either decorated with paintings, ornamental Americana, or both. The Butterfield Stage Steakhouse is another classic restaurant enjoyed by Route 66 travelers. It's usually open for dinner. The Butterfield Stagecoach service didn't actually pass through Holbrook. It passed through southern Arizona via Tucson. The next attraction along this stretch of road is the famous Wigwam Motel. There are several of these types of motels along Route 66, but this is probably the most well-known one. Be sure to either drive or walk through the property. You'll find plenty of old vehicles and artifacts to look at and enjoy. Next to the Wigwam is the site of the Plainsman Coffee Shop and Dining Room. It is now defunct, but it used to sport this classic neon sign, the type of sign commonly seen during Route 66's heyday. From here, we'll continue heading west and get back onto I-40. Our next visit will be to Joseph City, which is accessed by taking exit 277 from I-40. Turn right, and you'll soon be on Main Street, which was Route 66. Joseph City, originally named Allen's Camp, then St. Joseph, was founded in 1876 by pioneers from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as Mormons. Joseph City was named after the church's founder, Joseph Smith. This is the historic marker you'll see on the right side of the road, nicely made from petrified wood rocks. Not far down the road, you'll pass this wonderful display of historical pioneer artifacts. When we visited, the owner told us to take our time to look around. Ironically, he used to live in the same town that we live in now, in Utah. As you walk around looking at all the artifacts, you'll appreciate the hardships these pioneers went through to settle the West during the late half of the 1870s. Living here was tough enough, but the story of the pioneers originally getting here was even more rough, which consisted of crossing large expanses of Utah desert and over the canyonlands of what is now Lake Powell. Some of the artifacts and Americana you'll see here are also trinkets made by the owner representing various sites along historic Route 66. Driving a little further west will bring you to downtown Joseph City. Here you'll find a smattering of old businesses and houses following the typical Mormon architectural style found throughout Utah. And before you know it, you'll be exiting Joseph City. But before jumping back onto I-40, take the bridge to cross to the other side to enjoy driving an old segment of Route 66 for 5 miles to one of the more famous tourist attractions along the old road, Jackrabbit. During Route 66's heyday, Jackrabbit Trading Post was well known for its signs located along the road from Missouri to Arizona, indicating how far it was to Jackrabbit. When you arrived, the final Jackrabbit sign indicated, "Here it is." Incidentally, this sign was depicted in the 2006 movie Cars, mentioned earlier. This store is still owned by the grandchildren of the original man that created it in 1949. According to the owner, the building was previously used to raise rattlesnakes. It's a fun store to wander around, both inside and out, to see all of the various tourist attractions of both yesterday and today. Just west of Jackrabbit is this old gas station from the 1960s or 70s. It's one of the finer examples of gas stations from this era along this segment of the road that we've seen. From here, jump back on I-40 and head west towards Flagstaff. Next up, Winslow, Arizona. Doesn't that roll off the tongue nicely? So much so that a member of the rock group The Eagles wrote a song that included those words. The song, Take It Easy, with its line, Standing on a Corner in Winslow, Arizona, was written by Glenn Frey and Jackson Browne, and would become one of the most recognized songs in rock and roll history. Thanks to the Eagles, the song put Winslow on the popularity map. Winslow also owes its prosperity to the railroad. After being founded in 1882, the railroad still operates a major facility here today. They also built one of the more famous Harvey houses here in 1930, named La Posada, which is now a popular hotel that was lovingly restored and is privately owned. A walk around and inside La Posada is a real treat. Outside, you'll find these spacious and wonderful gardens. The restaurant, called the Turquoise Room, is a 5-star restaurant with outstanding food that we've enjoyed several times. Winslow's downtown area has become a hip spot to walk around and peruse. Numerous art galleries and eateries dot the 2 or 3 city blocks. The city has done a great job of polishing up this gem of a town to make it a place where Route 66 tourists want to stop and spend some time. You might even find yourself standing on one of its street corners. Here's where we'll also take our first look at a few of Bob Waldmeier's paintings. They are from the many postcards he produced. This first one is of downtown Winslow. It depicts and explains the new, standing on a corner park that the city created. As you can see, Bob's attention to detail was astounding. The following two postcards are paintings of La Posada. This one's in color and depicts the West Side courtyard. Here's the view today from the railroad tracks. The second one shows a view, also from the railroad tracks, that's a little difficult to photograph without the wrought iron gate in it. Nonetheless, Bob's picture provides a great example of what La Posada looks like, better than any of our pictures. One more thing about Winslow and, in general, driving down this portion of Route 66. You'll undoubtedly hear about the Painted Desert. Bob even talks about it in his map. The Painted Desert can be seen on the north end of the Petrified Forest National Park. But if you missed that, you can also see it 14 miles north of Winslow off Highway 87. Here, you'll find the Little Painted Desert Overlook. It offers a great view of what the Painted Desert is all about. Pastel-colored hills that look like nothing you've ever seen. In fact, we feel that this portion of the Painted Desert is more scenic than the national parks. We've been here near sunset and in the middle of the day. Either way, this is a delightful place to visit if you have the time, no matter what the lighting conditions are like. About 21 miles west of Winslow is an exit named Two Guns. It provides access to a roadside attraction of the same name, Two Guns. During Route 66's heyday, Two Guns was mainly an amusement park and zoo. Ruins of cages and pits where the animals were kept can still be seen. One attraction was called the Apache Death Cave. This was supposedly the site of a battle between Apache and Navajo warriors. After the Apache attacked a Navajo camp and murdered everyone, Navajos from another camp came after the Apache attackers. Those Navajo discovered the 42 Apache hiding in this cave. The Navajo, in turn, burned the cave, killing all of the Apache, and the name stuck as the Apache Death Cave. The ruins you see here are remains of an interpretive site and viewing deck that was part of the amusement park. Located also on the Two Guns site is the Canyon Diablo Bridge. It opened in 1915 and was part of the National Old Trails Road. It was replaced in 1938 by a newer bridge that one side of I-40 now uses. Twin Arrows used to be another iconic Route 66 gas station, gift shop, and diner. Its unique name came from the two arrows stuck into the ground. Twin Arrows closed its doors in 1990 and has been abandoned ever since. All that remains now are these heavily vandalized buildings. When these pictures were taken in 2020, both arrows were still standing. When we visited in 2024, only one was left. You'll find these twin arrows depicted on many historic Route 66 murals and illustrations, including the movie Cars. The large casino and resort with the same name and located at the same exit was originally a joint venture between the Hopi and Navajo. It's now operated solely by Navajo. One interesting thing to know about the portion of I-40 between Holbrook and Flagstaff. You'll notice there are several intersections with on and off ramps that pretty much lead to nothing. Back in the 1970s and 80s, when I-40 was being built, all these intersections had active settlements during the Route 66 days, such as Twin Arrows, Two Guns, and Meteor City. But after I-40 was built, these settlements died, and now there's pretty much no reason for those intersections to be there. They are now here to remind us of those settlements that once existed. There are several nearby national monuments to visit not far from Route 66, including the privately owned Meteor Crater, which isn't part of any park system. All these places are worthwhile visiting. For our tour, we'll include a visit to Walnut Canyon National Monument, as it's the closest to Route 66. This is a great example of Native American dwellings, basically cliff dwellers, from about 1100 to 1250 AD, about the same time the ancestral Puebloans, also known as the Anasazi, inhabited the area of northern Arizona and southern Utah. The dwellings at Walnut Canyon were inhabited by the Sinagua people, not the Anasazi. The Sinagua came from central Arizona, mainly the Verde Valley area. Walnut Canyon became a national monument in 1915 after the dwellings were seriously looted by white men for decades in the late 1800s. What you'll see here today is a fraction of what used to exist. Visiting Walnut Creek involves walking down many steps into the canyon about 100 feet below. The trails are on a hard surface, either rock or paved, along with stairs and handrails. The trail passes right next to the dwellings. A visit begins passing through the visitor center that has some great exhibits of the dwellings for those that don't care to huff and puff it down, then up the stairs. The stairway to see the dwellings, or a level canyon rim trail, is accessed from the back door of the visitor center. Before we get to Flagstaff, we don't want to forget Winona, which is mentioned in that famous song, Get Your Kicks on Route 66, where it says, "And don't forget Winona." If you choose not to forget Winona, take exit 211 and travel this segment of Route 66 all the way into Flagstaff. One thing to see is this historic bridge that the old road traversed. Otherwise, there aren't many historic sites to point out along this stretch. If you choose to stay on I-40, take exit 201, which is signed Flagstaff Page US 89. There are many old buildings and even more Americana to see on this stretch of Route 66 until you reach downtown. One such building is the Old Museum Club, built in 1931. It's located a mile west of the US 89 and I-40 intersection. Here's what it looks like from Route 66, and here is how Bob depicted it on one of his postcards. A walk through downtown Flagstaff is a must. This city has prospered for so many reasons, including being a place for people in Phoenix to escape the desert heat during summer. It's full of Route 66 memorabilia, and it caters to tourists headed to Grand Canyon National Park. One place to begin your visit is the train station, which is the visitor center for Flagstaff. From there, cross Route 66 and enjoy various old buildings located all over downtown. Oh, by the way, here's Bob's picture that shows both the old station and the newer station, the visitor center, further to the left. Behind this scene is downtown Flagstaff, with the San Francisco Peaks in the background. Speaking of the San Francisco Peaks, here's another one of Bob's postcards showing and explaining these volcanic mountains that are the highest point in Arizona. There are a few classic hotels that were open during Route 66's heyday that are well worth admiring or maybe staying a night or two in. Before you go, check out Flagstaff's Discover Flagstaff website for more information and events that may be occurring during your stay. To continue the journey westbound on Route 66, simply follow the signs. In a few miles, you'll end up on I-40. Part 2 of our tour will cover it starting in the town of Williams. And please keep in mind that there are certainly more things to see along this section of Route 66 that we can include in this virtual video tour. So, when you go, bring your sense of adventure along and see what else you can find. Be sure to watch for Part 2 of this Route 66 tour that takes you from Williams to Topak on the California border. We should have it published a few months after this one was released. We hope that you enjoyed our tour so far and have discovered some new places to visit along America's Main Street. Until we lead you on the next tour, we bid you happy exploring.